are you?
Very good, thank you.
So
Thank you, Bill.
I'm here with Javier Peláez in his studio in Mexico City. First of all, how's it going down there? How are you dealing with the current situation?
Well, it's kind of crazy. I think it's the same all over like, it's the same that in the US. I mean, we do have, like, the government is already allowing people to go out, and it seems mostly restaurants are open right now, but not everything is open. They say that the curve is kind of flattening here in Mexico City, but I don't think it is. So you get a lot of different information from different media, and I think the difficult thing right now is to know what really is going on. And for me, it's been kind of easy because I practically go from my apartment to my studio, and at my studio I have an assistant that comes and helps me sometimes, and that's basically the only person I see other than my daughter, and she's over
Right
there.
on cue. Hello.
That's Julia, my daughter, and
then we see your assistant back there too.
And that's Abraham, my assistant, that he's the other guy working here. And well, basically, I mean, there's not a lot of people that I see. I try to be very careful in the sense of not going. I mean, I practically don't go out, but at least I mean, I do get to come to the studio, which is very refreshing, and it changes the atmosphere from like being all day at home. So that is a good thing. And you know, being an artist, I mean, you're very used to be working alone by yourself, and practically things in that sense haven't changed. What I do miss is seeing my family, a lot of friends that I haven't gotten to see, and mostly the hardest thing for me has been like this feeling of uncertainty that you really don't know what's going on. You really don't know like what is the news you want to listen to, and I don't know, it's gotten political, it's gotten all confused, but I've been trying to center my attention around my daughter and my work, basically. So I'm blessed in that sense.
Well, I have to tell you, it's so great to see you. Sandy and I took probably the last trip we'll be taking for a while, certainly for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
Visit you in Mexico City. We came down there on March 8th, which felt a little crazy. And then we got to Mexico City, and the disease hadn't hit there yet. So life felt very normal. And we had such a great visit with you and your dealer in Mexico City, and had this amazing tour of galleries and restaurants. And we, you know, the one thing that we had been dying to do, especially Sandy, really wanted to see the Louis Barragan house. And the tour is like a 2-month in advance reservation to get there. And as we were leaving your dealer's gallery after a very nice visit, we were walking to go to lunch, and we walked right by a Barragan house, and we were amazed that, well, at least we get to see one from the outside. And then your dealer was on the phone, and in a few minutes, the owner of the house came to the door and waved us in, and we had this spectacular visit of the last Barragan house that was built in Mexico City. So we felt very privileged to get that kind of access and a special tour, and it just made the whole visit with you. And remind me of your dealer's name again.
He's Bernardo Senger.
Bernardo, yes. You know, could not have been nicer. We really felt well taken care of, and it felt like this fantastic trip. And then, and I'm gonna see if I can put some pictures of that Barragan house.
Yeah, it was great.
Conversation. We'll edit those in. But we got back, and now we realized that was a little blip of fantasy, and we came back to the reality of everything immediately getting shut down, and in fact, the night before we came back, it was when the president came on the television in Mexico. We saw it when we were in our hotel room saying all flights from Europe are being canceled and so on, and why they didn't shut us out of coming back from Mexico, which is,
Yeah.
that would have been, the more logical choice. And we would have probably had to, climb over the wall or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, Javier, let me talk a little bit about how great it has been to get to know you and work together. Our first contact with each other came serendipitously when I was looking to do a show for the Getty's Pacific Standard Time, LA, Los Angeles, Latin America, and because of Trump's really unbelievable animosity to your country, which I love, and I love the art and culture from your country. It was really important for me to specifically not just choose Latin America, but an artist from Mexico City. And so I knew Gustavo Ramos Rivera, who lives in San Francisco. I've known for a long time, and he grew up in Mexico City. So he was one that I was thinking of, but I was looking for another artist. And right at that time, you wandered into my gallery, and I'd seen your name and I'd seen some of your work. And our mutual friend, Ellie Blankfort, had as you were looking for a gallery, had recommended you stop in. And so I felt just incredibly lucky that the timing worked out for us to do this very well-reviewed show. We got a lot of writing on the exhibition, and we did well. We sold a number of pieces from the exhibition. It felt like a really good launch to doing this collaboration. And then this last fall, we did a solo show, which was phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't have been prouder of that exhibition. And again, we had a lot of great critical response and review. What's amazing to me with you and so many of the artists that I love working with is that you don't stand still. And so even though we had done the exhibition last fall, when I came this spring to see your studio and see new work, you'd already moved into a completely new body of work and brought along a lot of the themes that we showed. But I love that creative urge to continue pushing the boundaries and exploring and looking for new territories. So what are you working on now?
Well, thank you for what you've said. For me, it's been like a great experience. I also was like felt very lucky to be at the right place and time when we met and we first made the first show. And it was, I mean, it's been such a great experience working with you. You got so much experience. You're kind of to me, you're kind of a legend. You work with great artists that I do admire. And still, I mean, even though that you don't have like a Latin American angle at the gallery, it's so cool and so interesting that you do include, that you do have two Latin American artists, and I am proud to be one of them. And to me, it's been a great experience. And yeah, my work has shifted a lot, and to me, that's kind of it responds to my nature and my personality, but it also, to me, it responds to my idea of being a painter now, like a contemporary painter, and to be able to assume the fact of this post-historical condition in which we live, in which we have so much history in our backs as artists, as painters specifically, and we live in a world of images. So I'm continuously very influenced by a lot of artists, by a lot of other media, a lot of images. And to me, part of what what's so great of being a painter. It's that liberty of exploring and sometimes condensing those different interests you might have, and
That would
trying.
be by post-historical, that you really aren't confined to one moment in history, that the imagery, you have a broader range of imagery from which to draw.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, you got this bucket in which you have so many artists that you love and you admire, and one becomes a painter because one loves looking at paintings. I mean, that's practically, I mean, to me, that's something that uh, it's been the most relevant thing that got me into painting, that I loved looking at painting so much. And I love Renaissance art as much as I love modernism, or like concrete art or minimalism or conceptual art. And I've been influenced by a lot of these things, and I think it's very much accepted that we live in this postmodern era in which anything goes, as long as it comes from a honest and true approach. So to me, it's been great to be able to explore with different things and different visions of what painting is to me. In one part, I used to do very hyper realist work and very detailed work, which I still do. But at the same time, I've kind of given myself permission to go in other directions and trying to do things that have to do with geometry and color, and with a much more flat surface approach to painting. And so I kind of try to mix those things, even though they sound like they don't go together. And to me, that is a challenge, to put to put my hand inside the bucket of history and try to reach, see what I can find and what I can mix it with something else, and probably come with something challenging and something new, or at least new for me, because it's kind of hard to talk about something new nowadays. But
Yeah, well, that comes through in your work. It's clear that there's a deep thinking going on behind the process. That you're really looking at exploring sometimes that border between abstraction and representation, and how those two interconnect, and that balancing point.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, you and I have gotten to spend a lot of time together, but talk a little bit about how you got started as an artist. Did you grow up in Mexico City? And how did this first start to make itself apparent as a path for you?
Well, since I was a child, I was blessed to grow up in a family that they loved art. My father could collect some art, particularly kind of religious, very last 19th century religious paintings. And I grew up with that imagery, and I think I was very affected from it from the start. And I always wanted to be an artist, but my father thought it wasn't gonna, that wasn't a good idea. So he was an architect, and always, they're kind of brothers. Everybody thinks at the start, if you can draw well, you should, you probably shouldn't be an artist, because the prejudice is that you're gonna starve. Right. But then if you want to get serious with that drawing skill, you should be an architect. So I did what my father told me in the beginning, and which was I got into architecture school, and a very defining experience was that when I was like around fourth semester of architecture, my father passed away. So to me, it was kind of a defining moment where when I thought, well, I had never lost anybody close to me, and to me, it was to notice that life is so fragile, and that, I mean, you cannot control anything. So I was not going to spend more time doing something that I didn't want to do. So I decided to pursue a career as an artist. And it was funny because I enrolled at in Paris at INSPA, which is the fine art college in France, and I got accepted. But when I got there for the interview, I saw a lot of the work that they were showing. I mean, I got to see the studios, and I mean, I was practically going to stay there, and I saw that nobody was painting in a figurative way, and nobody was like being taught to paint the way I wanted to paint, which was kind of a classical way. I wanted to paint like the old masters wanted. I mean, that was to me what painting was about. So I got so pissed off and so disappointed from the whole experience that I did stay in Paris like for a month, but then I came back to Mexico, and what I did is basically I went after a couple of Spanish painters that were living at the time in Mexico that had such a great skill and that kind of knew a lot of the kitchen and that had a lot of the knowledge and the skill to
learn the craft of
the
painting.
craft. Yeah. So I was kind of trained in a very romantic I don't know, passé way to the times that I was living in. And it was kind of funny because when I was in architecture, I was kind of interested in very contemporary architecture. I loved Frank Gehry, I loved Zaha Hadid, I loved Daniel Libeskind, and when I started to be a painter, I mean, I hated modernism. To me, I wanted to paint like the Dutch painters or the Spanish painters or the Italian painters. I mean, it was kind of, I had those two ways of looking at things. And so I started very early, and I started with a gallery in Mexico, which was kind of working with one of the artists that I was frequently going to his studio. So that's kind of the way that it started to me. And then it got in a more self-taught way, and I've been developing my technique and my approach to painting, and in a very kind of a romantic self-taught way. Now it's kind of, I mean, it's been so long from when I started to.
Well, in Mexico City, like many European cities, has such a rich history in romantic art and painting, but with its own, unique inflections that are, taking those ingredients, but then combining them in new and different ways. And so you also have, in the mid 20th century, some of the, the great contemporary artists coming out of Mexico City, like Tamayo and so on. And so you have both of those traditions, this kind of rich stew of influences that I can see why you would want to kind of take it all in, and learn from all of it.
Yeah. I mean, we have such a great, since the pre-Hispanic cultures, I mean, we have such a great tradition of painting, of the use of color. And I mean, you kind of inherit those values, even though nowadays you're influenced mostly not by your background ethnically, but by everything that you see. But yeah, I think I kind of inherited that from where I live, from my family, and it was kind of, yeah, I was very much influenced at the start by European aesthetic. And I think more and more I've been influenced by North American painters, and by like a couple of Japanese painters that I love. And nowadays, I mean, it's the world has gotten in a way so small, and you get to see very easily, traveling to LA or even in Mexico, you get to see a lot of great artists showing, and that's, I mean, that's very good.
No, very much so. I mean, that the days when there was a small group of artists that were all chasing a particular idea, and developing nuances of abstract expressionism or even pop art. Now, as you say, it's kind of exploded, and there's no sitting around a theater bar in New York talking about ideas and feeling like you're in this isolated pocket and kind of branching out in this completely new direction. Everyone has access to all of those influences, no matter where you are in the world. So it has made the world very small, and it is in that way, to me, also post-historical, where whatever time period, whatever influences speak to you, you can incorporate.
Of course, yeah. And in a way, that's the most challenging thing as an artist, because sometimes, even like in my case, which I tend to be very, very Baroque, I sometimes don't know when to stop, and I'm always trying to mix things. And the hard thing as an artist, and as you start to get more mature and get older, and you start to know like these very small differences, and you kind of start to analyze things a little bit deeper, and have a better vision of what you want to do. But it's still hard. I mean, sometimes I would love to put Daniel Libeskind and Johannes Vermeer in a blender, and that's kind of the place that I want to live in which these two opposites live. And but I don't know. I mean, but it's very challenging in the way. And I think our latest show in the gallery, Broken Tree, was dealing with that. With it did have like most of the paintings had a very deconstructivist diagram, in a sense of abstraction, and kind of things were broken, like these picture planes were breaking, and they were changing direction all the time. But at the same time, they kind of dealt with color and the flow of color, and this very blurred, very loud color background. And at the same time, most of them had the image of this kind of realist representation of a broken tree. So to me, the three things were kind of, one was giving a little bit of power to the other one, and they were kind of potentializing and having this dialogue between them to make the image in an emotional aspect a little bit stronger. But at the same time, if you would find references for these elements, they come from very different periods of art history. So yeah, that's kind of where my work is at. I'm trying to make like my most hyper-realist work, but at the same time, I'm trying to make my most abstract work. So, I mean, it's kind of there. I mean, like in a liminal, like in this border between one place and the other.
Yeah, it was a very challenging problem that you gave yourself in that balance between abstraction and representation, and you pulled it off. I thought but the space was not traditionally three-dimensional, and it was not absent completely either. So it was a very interesting, discordant harmony, which is a contradiction that I just said, but what the hell. Um,
No, but I think, yeah, that's, I mean, they deal with contradictions. So yeah.
yeah. Let's do this. I would love to maybe tomorrow morning get a peek at a couple of pieces that you're working on and get a sense of new directions, and just pick this up for a few minutes tomorrow and
Do
get
that.
to do that.
Yeah, of course, Bill.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, this has been fantastic today, and I will see you tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Hello
Bill.
again, Javier.
Hi, Bill.
So great to see this new work in progress behind you. That's the one thing I was wanting from yesterday. And so talk to me a little bit about this series. I saw the beginning of this series when I was in Mexico City with you in March.
Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit about what you're doing here. Neither of these, the one on the wall is the background for, and then you're doing this floral series that's sort of expanded and abstracted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as you said, the one on the wall is just in the first stage in which I start blurring these these colors, and I create these very blurred atmospheres that kind of remind us of the work that I showed with you with the Broken Tree show. And they come a little bit from that place. But then what I did is I took an old motif that I had worked on, which were the flower paintings. But now what I'm interested in regarding the subject matter, these are all poisonous flowers. So I'm kind of trying to talk about the beauty and the poison in the object and the way these relate to like hallucinatory experiences and those kind of experiences that kind of help us sometimes to understand reality. And but at the same time I'm kind of breaking them, and I'm working a little bit with a pixel and with a little bit of some making the pixel a geometrical element in the work. As you can see, some little spaces in this piece are already showing these very geometrical squares that kind of relate to the pixel and to the way we kind of look at nature nowadays, which is a very artificial or a very digital way. So it kind of deals with nature, but at the same time with this distance or with this artificiality with which we kind of understand or view at nature nowadays.
They're beautiful, but it's a dangerous beauty, as I now understand.
Yeah.
So was one of the ideas of the fact that you're focusing on poisonous flowers to indicate that all is not as it appears, or what was part of the idea of focusing on just that?
Yeah, well, I kind of like the fact that you can, I mean, they are so beautiful. I mean, flowers have always been like the archetype of beauty, the like something that you can think about like since you're a kid. And but I'm more interested in the fact that these are kind of prohibited in some places, and because of the fact that people sometimes use them or extract their substances to use them in the best of the cases, and which I find very interesting, they use them in rituals in Mexico, and those are very like spiritual experiences. And to me it's interesting that you kind of use this poison to understand reality, like you go out of yourself to get a better grip of what reality is. And I think that relates to my visual interests, kind of going back and forward towards reality and away from it. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm working with a neurologic institute right now, and we have some of your work up there from the previous show, and they're very interested in using psychedelics in therapeutic ways. But part of what they really want to do is also have artwork as part of the environment and the experience, so that people have this sense of nature and have some place to go when they're on their trip to, you know, kind of dive into the imagery that they see from the paintings. So, you know, this work speaks so beautifully to that interest in understanding a reality better by maybe having an experience of surreality and unreality.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I love this new series. I'm already chomping at the bit to get some from this series for the gallery. We're going to be posting a few images that you sent us of some other work that you've done. Sadly, I think you said most of it is sold, but as it did with me, I hope it whets the appetite for all of the people that are fans of the gallery and now becoming fans of your work, that there's more on the way.
There definitely is a lot of more work on the way, and I'm so happy that we can establish such a great dialogue about the work. And yeah, I think
Absolutely.
it's getting into a place where it's getting a little bit more more profound, and it's like I'm putting in a lot of myself personally, but I think also they kind of are very open in that way. They're not as personal. Probably this new body of work is not as personal as the Broken series was. I think it has a little bit more open of an open ended way of work, of reaching out to people, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see how this series progresses. Please hold some back for us. And I look forward to continuing to stay in touch.
Okay, Bill, let's do it. Okay.
Thank you so much, Javier. Have a great day.
Thank you, Bill. It's been great talking to you. Thank
Likewise,
you.
always. Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye.